and I'm handing over to Ange, and then Ange, you can take over. So there you go. I'm gonna
No, thank you
come
so
through
much.
and I'll ask my question
Yes,
later.
definitely. No, thank you so much for gracing us, Mapalo. I'm in Botswana, and how I came up with your book, I started seeing it all over my friends' statuses and recommending them here in Botswana. So here in Botswana is buzzing, and the title just really grabbed my attention. I mean, the title I think is very genius. You are not broke, you are pre-rich. And to me, it's like affirmation. And I was like, oh, wow, this is very encouraging, that I'm not broke, I'm pre-rich. How does that happen, And then, so Doc accepted the book and said, oh, sounds interesting. So because every time, now and again, we are suggesting books. And I thought this one is a really good book. And especially that I saw that it's South Africa by a South African author, you're South African. And I said, no, guys, colleagues, let's just check the local author. And what an amazing surprise. It was very pleasant surprise. And the book, as I said, the title is just genius. Please tell me, how did you come up with this title, or how did it spark? Were you thinking of other titles, and why this title?
Thank you so much for everyone for being here and inviting me. So how the title of the book came about? So the publishers came to me and said, hey, would you be interested in writing a book for us? And I said, of course, no one turns down that type of opportunity. And when we were looking at titles, I remember I was like, what do you call your first book? And so I went back to the conversations I've always had with either friends, family, or colleagues, right? And one of the most resounding things is, especially when you're starting out in your career, you feel very broke, right? You feel like, goodness, I thought I was going to graduate and take over the world and become a multimillionaire. And you quickly realize that it does not work like that. And so when I was doing a podcast a couple of years ago, even before I wrote the book, I remember one of the people I was doing a podcast on, where she was talking about her struggles, financial struggles, when she was coming up in her career. And she mentioned that, you know what, but she always affirms herself that she's not broke, she's pre-rich. And we laughed at that. We completely laughed. And I put it out on social media, and people just resonated with that and said, that is brilliant. Actually, this is how I feel. I know that this is not going to be my circumstance forever. So that's where the story comes from. Then when the publisher said, okay, maybe you can give us a couple of titles, and they had a few titles on their table as well, I went back to my feed, right? I went all the way back to see what resonated with people. Then that came about. I said, this is a little bit catchy. I think we can use this. So hence, you're not broke, you're pre-rich.
It's genius. And I also love the design. I'm a creative, I'm a designer. So honestly, the design is very beautiful, vibrant. And actually, I mean, it was such a title that it really made sense along the book. I appreciate that. I can see that it's very well researched. In each chapter, you also mention a lot of the South African laws, and you have a lot of myths that you debunk. You are demystifying some myths, and also you're explaining some jargon in some of the particularly in investment and topics that they feel maybe so heavy and difficult. You demystify everything. So to me, it felt like a very light reading, and it felt like I was having coffee with you. So I really appreciate that you were also going with this language that is just light and understandable, and like I'm having coffee with a friend. Totally recommended it. And the topics that, well, we are going to go through them. Some of them, I have some post-its on my book. But the topics that you go is very wide, is very diverse. You come from, actually the title, it made sense to me. It clicked in the first two chapters, where it says a lot of the mindset and what we have been taught, the way we have grown, the things that we have been said about money. Mindset plays a huge role, right? So can you actually, and another truth, another bomb there that you dropped is the fact that unfortunately financial education is not there in a curriculum, is not there in school. We are not taught about it. Can you just go a bit further for people who have not read your book yet? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So maybe let's even go back. So I worked in the financial services industry and in the pension and provident fund space, then became a financial advisor before I left to pursue women and finance completely. And one of the things that really struck out for me was when you are managing pension and provident funds, you go on what we call roadshows, right? And on these roadshows is to explain to members of pension and provident funds how their pension fund is performing, what they should expect, why the funds we chose for them, just to acquaint them with what their pension fund or provident fund is all about. And every single time, and when I say every single time, I mean every time that we went on the roadshows, you'd have a Q&A session, explain, then have a Q&A session afterwards. And one thing I noticed is that every single time women would come to me afterwards, right? Remember, there was a Q&A session, but women would come to me afterwards and say, hey, Mapalo, what did you mean by this? What did you mean by that? Then I thought to myself, what language were we speaking in there that people did not, one, feel confident to ask questions in that session? Number two, what language were we speaking that people really didn't understand? So for me, it showed that perhaps there is a problem here in terms of how people receive financial education and financial products or financial information, right? And so I started blogging. That's how my company, Women in Finance, came about. I started blogging just so I can write this financial literacy in a simple and relatable way. So I started blogging, and that's how even the publishers came to me and said, hey, you write quite a lot extensively when it comes to personal finance. And with my background in finance, it was not just, yes, only my experiences, but facts as well, because you can talk about personal finance, but if it should be based on fact and the legislation of that country at that point. So Mary too started writing. And when I went deeper into personal finance, because it was a topic that I thoroughly enjoyed, even when he was my boyfriend then, now my husband, I would want to talk about money with him all the time. Even when we're dating, we didn't wait for marriage to start talking about money. Hey, what do you think, if you're planning a future together, how do you want to handle finances? What will be our net worth in 5 years after we're married? I realized that even the people I studied with, so I have a BCom finance degree, I have a postgraduate financial planning. I realized that people I studied with, the very same subjects, they passed, they went through to work in the world of finance and investments. They came to me to find out, hey, I heard you talking about this. How do I do that? So I realized that, yes, perhaps you could have the knowledge, but it's how you perceive it. So meaning that it really starts way before the education starts. It starts with your perception of money. It starts with how you grew up. And so people handle money. In my book, I make an example of a lady I used to work with when I was still in corporate. She would say every single month, we got paid on the 25th of every month. Every single month, she would say, Mapalo, motho o phela ka sekoloto, right? And it literally translates that you cannot live without debt. And she was in her 50s, going towards retirement, late 50s. And lo and behold, at that age, she still had debt. She still was ducking and diving at the end of every month. So for me, these things where we say what you believe is who you become and it becomes your reality, it's not some woo-ha stuff in the air. It's an actual fact. What you believe even what you believe about yourself, that's your reality, right? Sometimes it takes long to catch up. If you think yourself as a multimillionaire, you have to put in a bit of work for a couple of years. But it showed me that mindset is a very powerful thing. People can grow up in the same household where they were taught about money or not taught about money, but someone, because of what they believe. I'm actually doing a podcast now for one of my clients, Sasfin, right? And I remember a lady I did a podcast on, she said, the thing about money is the contract you make with yourself, right?
Mhm.
So she grew up in stark poverty. The house was dysfunctional, just very weird stuff happening. And she promised herself that she will never be poor. She will never depend on a man. She will always have money of her own, right? And she said she made that statement or contract with herself at a
Yeah.
very tender age of around 8, 9. And now, as a woman who is very successful, she runs her own company, she travels all over the world, she has her own money, right?
Yes.
But again, it goes back to mindset. The contract we make with ourselves is way more important than our circumstances. So if you grew up where money was seen as this terrible, bad thing, normally our relationships with money, it's a very hard relationship. And normally we don't even say, oh, I have such and such a relationship with money. Oftentimes people say, oh, I'm not good with money, I'm this, but you don't realize it's a relationship. And if you want a relationship to work, you can work on it, right? There are steps and things you can do to actually have a better relationship with money.
Yeah, indeed. No, it's true that the same thing that you are saying about that lady that made that commitment or that contract with herself. Personally, the Black tax chapter, it was really touched home with me. I'm married to a Black Motswana, and the same, my husband, coming from a very tough background, he promised himself, me, I'm breaking this cycle. Yes. And as you said, a lot of our generation, he was the first one to go to university and being in a scholarship and abroad and etc. But he made that commitment, and most of the time I get him out there to encourage other young people to say, it's as you are saying, it's just a commitment to yourself, and mindset plays a lot of that role. Another thing, well, let me just go quickly through the chapters. You talk about personal finance is easy, well, which you are actually bringing it to the table because, as you say, mindset, we have been conditioned, I guess, to believe that mindset, that finances belong to the experts, to people that go to school, that people that is so far away from us mortals, common people, right? Like we cannot get there, it's like a holy ground. And you are making it so easy and so understandable and so friendly. You are in your book, I think you are coming up with this relationship that is friendly, and you are presenting like, guys, don't be scared, this is quite easy. And you talk about the money myth busters. I would like, actually, some of them really hit me hard because I'm guilty of the one that you say, sometimes we as women, we don't take charge of our finances. I'm married, and sometimes I say, no, my husband will deal with finances. I'm guilty of that. And I'm so grateful that you also have your platform, Women in Finance, because you are empowering women to take charge of their finances, to do something for themselves. Yeah, whether we are married or not, but we should really be responsible for ourselves. The other, your relationship with money, you just dealt with it. You were just explaining about the relationship and the mindset. But can you go and touch a bit about the Black tax chapter, which is very common in Southern Africa? I mean, well, I guess in Africa, the Black tax. Can you just dwell about it? Like, what would you say to the viewers right now about that chapter particularly? That is very common. I'm married to that myself. Yeah.
And I think it's such and I always say when it comes to this topic, and it's always almost like a disclaimer that I put out, that I know it's an extremely, extremely sensitive topic. And it is a topic that a lot of people, it brings up a lot of emotion for a lot of people, right? And for a reason. One of the things I actually did a video about was what to do with the first paycheck a couple of weeks ago. And a lot of people, it resonated with them. And one of the things I said, also as someone who is first in your family, first to go to varsity, first to graduate, first to get a good job, first to buy a car, first to buy a house. You as an individual, you set a precedence as well in terms of how you handle your first paycheck or many other paychecks for coming later in your life, right? Because you have this sense of wanting to give back, this sense of you owe the people who helped you along the way. And absolutely, I mean, even with myself, my oldest sibling and my other sister, they had to help out with my varsity fees, right? But I always had this thing that I have to work hard so that people cannot keep on giving. And I think when we talk about Black tax, it has to come back to boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries when it comes to money, not just with other people, but with yourself as well, is very important. And when I talk about boundaries, we often talk about boundaries for other people, but we don't realize we actually should have boundaries within ourselves first and promise yourself that, yes, I will help out with my family. And you draw up your budget and you say, okay, if I earn 100 rand, for example's sake, and I know that my household can survive on 60 rand, it means that I can lend a helping hand to my family, to my extended family, maybe for 10 rand or 15 rand, then I'm left with 5 rand, so I can start saving and investing for my future, right? But what often happens, and in many cases where I've spoken to tons and tons and tons of people, they feel so guilty, they will give the 20 rand that's left, or 40 rand that's left. And even on top of that, they will use their credit card, get into a loan. And what does that create? It creates a precedent for people to know that whenever, any time of day, without any boundaries, they can come to you and you will always make a plan, right? So it means that you yourself don't have a sense of boundaries and you will basically chop off your arm so that other people are okay, right? Helping is a wonderful thing. That's what we must do as part of humanity. What also that creates is resentment, because oftentimes givers give so much until they have absolutely nothing. And takers can take and take and take without ever saying, well, that is enough. Actually, you've done enough, right? I've had family members where I told them that, you know what, I can only do so much. Let's see how else we can come up with a plan for you with the skills and experiences that you have to start earning some sort of income. If I'm able to give you 5 rand per month, that is it. That is all the money that I can give you. From then onwards, you also have to budget around what it is that I give you and say, what skills, what experiences do I have so that I can be a productive member of this family as well? So that also I'm able to help other people, not the one who's always being helped. And I think it's such an empowering thing when you know yourself that I have earned a living for myself. Yes, it might not be able to cover all of my expenses, but if I come to you and I say, hey, Angie, I will show you that, oh, I also have 10 rand here. Can you please just give me an extra 10 bucks because then I'll have everything. So I think the conversation, it's a very tough one for sure, but if you don't want to be resentful of your family eventually and them resentful of you, because what I've seen, if you've given so much for all these years and the day you tell them that, you know what, we're not going to keep this up anymore, then people become very upset, which shows you what? That people have become entitled to you giving.
True. No, true. Definitely. And you are talking about budget. You know, you need to come up. Also, you actually, that's the next chapter that you talk about, having a budget, having a goal, first of all, and then you divide, there's a percentage, and we need to decide what is want, what is need, and what really you can do away with, you know. And I feel, actually, my husband and I, we have a budget for our helping, you know, every month. We know that that's the boundary, and it has worked because, at the beginning, he was used to perhaps give right and left, but we had to be realistic and with boundaries. If we want to achieve whatever, you have to put the boundaries and the goals and the budget. I love the budget topic as well because it's so common. I see it with a lot of people. It's amazing that I have here where I live. It's a very rich, it's a very well town, you know. There's a lot of money as compared to the rest of the country. But it always amazes me that people, professionals earning top salaries, whatever, you can see that is everything in the relationship with money and what they can afford, and what other people, for example, people selling sweets on the street. For me, was a very powerful example. There's a lady selling sweets by the shop here, the local spar. And I remember seeing her every time that she was selling a sweet, she would be writing on a notebook. For me, it was like not making sense. Like every chappy, you know, the chappies, and you know, she was.
Wow.
All of a sudden, I saw that woman buying a taxi, and she got her license, and she has the license for the taxi. So she still has her stall with sweets, and then now she's doing trips with taxi as well.
Wow.
So that taught me, you know, that people, it doesn't matter, and my husband has always said it as well, that it doesn't matter if you earn 5 rands, well, pulas for us, or 50 pula. You need to, where your money goes, you need to have a plan, and it's achievable. It's achievable, you know. But there was the other opposite extreme where there was a point in recession. I can remember 2008 here where we live. And my husband says that a lot of people were retrenched. And it was amazing that all these big cars, all these big devices or whatever that they were having, there was no place to take, you know, there was no home, there was nothing, because people live in the moment, perhaps. And as you were saying in the book, to flash around, to be, just the status, and just to show the point, and just to prove. So I love that part of your book where you actually bring us back to basics, and you really, to ground us, you know. If you can just share your experience. Oh, and by the way, I love the fact that in each of the chapters, most of the chapters, you're actually sharing experiences, and from other people, you are interviewing people. So it's not just your work. As I said, I feel that this book was really well researched, and but you can tell us about your, just, I don't know how he's knitting he's knitting to my office. And,
no, they only do. I have two, so I have two. He might walk in at any minute, so that's just another disclaimer, and it's perfectly fine. It is the evening, and they are allowed to just come and say hi to Mom.
Okay, so you can just tell us about the importance of having a budget, which is really
absolutely
people lack.
Yeah, I think it's so much easier to live in the moment and to feel like, you know what, things are good right now. I will, you know, I'll save later, or I'll start investing later, I'll budget later. And it's a trap that a lot of people fall for, regardless of income bracket, whether they don't have much, whether it's middle income, whether it's people who are really doing well in their career. And you know, there's what we call lifestyle creep, where the more you make, the more you just spend. And literally, if, you know, one of the questions I normally ask people, I say, okay, it's fantastic that you earn $1 million. It's fantastic that you earn 3 million a year, 10 million a year. But if today the job that you have or your company were to go under, how much would you keep for yourself? How many months would it take you to recover and still be okay and still live the same type of lifestyle? And oftentimes the answer is very scary. Then it really shows you just how much people are living up to their very, very, very maximum. So if I make, and it starts small. Once you start working, maybe you earn 10,000, you spend all the way to 10,000, and then, the rest of the month, you're kind of looking like, oh goodness, I can't wait for the next paycheck, and that's what I think Americans termed living paycheck to paycheck. Then you think, oh no, my solution will be to earn more money, then I'll be better with money. And actually it does not work like that. Your habits are formed. Whether you have small or big amounts of money, your habits are formed. And, it shows even with small amounts how you will handle the big money that you think, oh no, if you just throw big money at me, it's like ESCOM, like many of us experiencing load shedding right now. We keep on throwing money into this thing and we're thinking, oh no, it's going to solve our problems. No, the habits and everything else, besides the politics, show you that is never the reality. I actually have a friend of mine who is a lawyer. She is brilliant at money. A lot of the times some of her friends laugh at her and say, hi, when are you always writing? She buys a can of Coke. She has a notepad. She will write, okay, this is the day. It is the 7th of March, 2023. And I mean, she's well advanced in her career now. She's an attorney. And she will write, okay, the 7th, I bought a Coke, or I bought data, or I bought whatever else. And she keeps it. And if she has receipts, she will keep them there at the end of the week. She takes a look at it and say, okay, what was my budget for the week? How far in am I with my budget? What did I overspend on? So she's very aware of where her money is going. And she is never, ever broke. Ever. I've never heard her say, oh, I'm so broke this month. Not once. And she's been doing that since she started working. Then I have another friend of mine who is in IT, brilliant person, makes tons of money. I remember one time he said, no, let's go, bought dinner and everything, to the point where you feel ashamed, like, no, it's okay. You can pay for the meal, for the drinks, we'll cover. No, don't worry, it's on me. I'm a baller. I've got this. From time to time, he's the type of person who will say, this month has been a bad month. I went to Cape Town last month. I did this. Oh, and that thing came up. So you can see that there's something in being astute with your money, right? That it is not the fact that you are, what do they call it? A miser, or you are stingy when you are aware of where your money is going, because it means that you are in control versus the other person. Yes, they make tons of money and it's a wonderful thing, but they can never really point to where it went. And one of the questions I often ask in my webinars or when I'm talking is, think back to all the money you've earned throughout your career. So if you have a career spanning 15 years, 10 years, 7 years, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever that number is for you, think back to the amount of money you have earned throughout your entire working life, right? And yes, we have to be practical because you had to live, you had to pay some expenses and whatnot. But if you think about it, it's quite a large chunk. It's quite a large chunk for people who are middle income and even up, right? People who have a bit extra to spend on restaurants, on eating out, on taking their loved ones for a little getaway. So you do have some room to maneuver. So how much of that you have made, or that you had room to maneuver with, how much of that have you kept in terms of emergency fund, in terms of savings, and in terms of investments? And if you're truly honest with yourself, you realize that, well, a lot you cannot account for. And that's where I always say, just go back, have that picture for yourself of, okay, this is what I've made all of these years. If I had just kept, I don't know, X percentage, I never prescribe to say 10%, 20%. Just look at what your circumstances and say, what is it that I can actually put away? I remember when I started my investment journey, I was so excited about it. I would just look up and read company statements or read the news about what's happening, what they call sense. And I'll be like, oh, okay, that looks interesting. That stock looks interesting. And if I had, I looked at the entire month and I had maybe $200 to spare on the spot, I would just put it away, you know. And I think that a lot of the times, especially if you are someone who earns decently or very well, we take for granted small amounts. We're thinking, what is 200 gonna, what difference is that going to make? But remember, it's not so much about that specific amount. It's about the habit that you are trying to instill in yourself to know that when there is a little bit of money, whether it's small or large, you know that a certain percentage of it must go towards some sort of emergency fund, some sort of saving, or some sort of long-term investment. And again, we're going back to mindset, because someone whose mindset is spend, and they're always complaining about money is very different from someone who says, hey, you never know. In my language, we have a saying, meaning there's an English thing for it. I forget how it goes, but stack up while things are good. I can't remember how you say it. Someone might help me here. But stack things up while things are good, because you just never know. I mean, look at the pandemic. For some businesses, things took off. For some businesses, things came to a complete halt, to a standstill, where people were thinking, goodness, how am I going to pay my bills? But oftentimes we forget that when things are good, sometimes they won't remain that way. And sometimes when things are bad, they don't remain that way. And that's why I absolutely love that saying where it says, the good thing is nothing good lasts forever. The good thing also is that nothing bad lasts forever. Yes. So there's always change. And you must, when doing your financial plan for good and plan for bad as well.
Yes, no, definitely. You tackle it with savings. You tackle it with emergency funds. You, in your book, you talk about credit card. The usage of it is not just, there's a use for credit cards as well. So, and also I really appreciated the fact that almost at the end of each chapter, you were talking to freelancers, entrepreneurs as well. So it's very complete. I just want to close up my part. My take is, I just want to say thank you, because you're speaking up for women. You are putting out there a topic that we are all afraid of, but you are making it friendly and you are making it light for us. You are making it digestible. I really enjoy your social media as well. And I would like to open the floor for the rest of my colleagues if there's any other question or probably comment. I don't want to have you all for myself. I don't want to be that greedy. So if my colleagues have any comment or question after we read the book, thank you so much, Mapalo. I really appreciate you.
No, thank you so much, Angie.
Colleagues, feel free to come in and ask a question or just a comment.
Okay, I'll jump in since the guys are still shy. Thank you so much, Mapalo, for the amazing book. And as Angie has explained, it's quite an easy read. It takes, I'm an accountant by profession, so I did my articles and all that. And I know that for a lot of people, finances are something that we're not taught at home. We grow up not really understanding finances. They're intimidating, that the jargon is intimidating. And it's one of those we have to teach ourselves, and more often we teach ourselves through pain, one of my best authors, Seth Godin, he says, he says, if money is an emotion, that's where the real problem is.
Yeah.
And in the book, you talk about, I forgot where the chapter is, and I would like you to break it down for us. You talk about money personalities.
Yes.
And you have, when I read that, I'm like, oh my word, this is like, sometime late last year, we reviewed this book, Psychology of Money.
Yes, it's a brilliant book.
by Morgan Housel. And he talks about, I mean, he starts the book with doing this comparison between somebody who's earning quite a lot of money, he was a sports person, and somebody who was a janitor who was earning quite less. And he does the study over time, and it comes to the fact that an athlete, the one who was earning lots of money, ended up losing everything and ended up being poor. And the janitor, the one who was not earning a lot of money, but because the janitor had very good habits, money habits, over time he saved quite a lot of money, and he actually had millions on his retirement. And what Morgan Housel was trying to say is, it's not really about being a highly educated person or somebody who's earning quite a lot of money. It's really about money habits. What money habits do you have? And you do a very stunning job here. So maybe just break it down for some of us, what the money personality.
Money personalities, yes. So, I kind of likened it to, I remember when I started working, they would take us for all of these tests to say, what kind of leader are you? Are you A-type? Are you? And so I imagined that, with money also, there's a different way we spend money. And I can even ask him to say, Angie or yourself, what is the first thing when you think, if I were to give you $1 million today, no, you don't have to do anything else for it. What would you do if I said, just give me your account, I'll deposit R1 million? So even without answering, just thinking about it, normally people have different answers. So you might find that Angie's answer is completely different from yours, and Khomulimo's answer is completely different from yours, right? But that effectively tells you how we think about money. So every single one of us, and I'll give you an example. With the podcast that I'm doing, one of the guys who's a cameraman, he said, Mapalo, every single time I get money, I get paid, it's the most anxious day of my life. I get so anxious. I'm actually very edgy, a little bit unhappy, a little bit annoyed, because I'm always worried, is this going to be enough? And I mean, you know how much you're getting paid. It's fixed. It's not like it's you know exactly how much you're getting paid. And I never thought about it that way. But why am I thinking, is it enough when I know that it's fixed? It's my salary. Yes, if you're doing some side hustle gigs, and it can be different every other time, but if you have a fixed salary, you know how much you are getting. So the money personalities are truly, if you are a spender, when I asked you that question about $1 million, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, I want to go on holiday. I want to do this. Oh my gosh, I have all these debts to pay off right now, right? Or if you're a saver, you're thinking to yourself, I remember asking one of my sisters, I have 2 sisters, I remember asking her, what would you do? And the other one just said, I wouldn't tell a soul. I would just leave it there and maybe take 2 months to start thinking about it, right? So already it tells you the type of person she is. I asked my brother on the other hand, he said, I'll box that thing out of here. I would make sure 50K immediately, I'm doing something. I'm taking myself somewhere nice. I'm taking my wife somewhere nice. The rest will figure it out later, right? So oftentimes also you will see people who say, I'll figure out once the money's in my account. They don't. They are the people who at the end of the month ask themselves, Haibo, where did this money go? It was here. I was going to figure it out, but life happened. Life figured out for you what is going to happen with your money, right? Then you have someone who thinks, especially, unfortunately, I love women, I'm a woman, but a lot of the times, or especially back then, it used to be, oh no, my husband will take care of it. Very dangerous, right? Or someone who says, hey, you know what? I can spend, I can save, I can have a little bit of fun, right? So you call that someone who's very well-rounded, and that's where we all truly want to be. But most of us, we are either savers, and if you reflect back on people who are savers, there might have been something that triggered it when they were growing up, that they didn't have enough, and they said, I will never be in this situation, I will always have money. And one of my family members also grew up very tough. And he said to me one time, he said, you know what? I promised myself once I qualified as a doctor, I will never have less than 300,000 in my account. And one time it dipped way below that. He was grumpy. He was just sour. You know, again, you see how we handle money is not just, oh no, now I'm an adult, I have kids, I'm married. We literally always go back to what happened to us and how we perceived money growing up, and the contract, again, we made with ourselves. Someone might have grown up in a similar situation and they said, one day when I have money, hey, I'm going to show it. I'm going to show everybody, because I have never had the type of money before. So money burns my pockets. If it's here, it's for spending and for living. And you even realize, and you know, I have so much sympathy even for people who tell you that, let's say, for example, they have kids and say, no, I'm not going to send them to the best schools. They will see to themselves. You know, it's a different ideology. And oftentimes people are like, what kind of a human being are you? I said, yay, you don't know this person's history. You don't know where they come from. You don't know what formed their perception. And if you sat down with people, and I think that's what, what's his name says also in the book, that people's money decisions can look like they are crazy. But if you were to sit down with them, you will actually see that there's a rationale behind it. Something that makes perfect sense to them. And it goes back to mindset, how we grew up, our perceptions of money, and our money personalities, what conclusions we formed about money at a very, very young age. And funny enough, even studies show that by the age of 7, our money habits are formed, and most habits, by the way. So normally we are literally young children handling money who never really go back and say, hey man, wait a minute, why do I handle money this way? And even people who are married, who are couples, then they start fighting about money. But remember, both of you come from completely two different backgrounds, come from completely two different households, where what you saw and how you perceived everything around you formed your thinking and how you handle money. So money is a very emotional thing. And, you know, you see experts say, take emotions out of money. Nobody does that. No one, even Warren Buffett himself, even after all of these years, you know, he does things now because it's no longer about, oh no, if I lose money, I won't have money. But his emotions now are bigger on, goodness, I have so many people to take care of, and they take care of their family. So even you as a business owner, maybe it might not be money for bread and butter issues anymore, but it's still largely controlled by your emotions to say, geez, if this company goes down, how many other people's livelihood would go down with it? So money is connected to our emotions all the time. And the best thing we can do to navigate around that is to actually look at, what is it that I believe? What is motivating my decisions about money? Is it really helping me get to the place where I need to be or not? And you know, the crazy thing about money is that it's not just money, it's more than money, because you have people who have really, really warped view of money. They can have tons and tons and tons and tons and still feel poor, right? I have met people who make tons of money, they go on beautiful holidays, but they are forever afraid that, goodness, one bad thing happens and I will be poor, right? So sometimes they don't even treat people fairly. It's a whole lot. And you know, even with the money personalities, I think it's saver, it's the hoarder who just never wants to spend anything because they feel safe and secure when they do have money. If, goodness, even if you ask them for anything, you know, even when it comes to tipping, and I mean, some things you can see, even when it comes to tipping, someone tips 5 rand, who, I mean, you just ate a meal for 1,000 rand and you're tipping someone 1 rand, you know. So our money habits and our money personalities are shown in our everyday life, just that people are not aware. And oftentimes when I talk to young women and men who are in varsity, I do this program with the University of Johannesburg, I tell them that the partner that you will choose also is so important. And you do that, you don't wait until you're married, you observe them already, because they show you when they get some pocket money, they show you already how they will behave when they get R1,000,000, 2,000,000 rand, right? You observe people and you say, okay. And oftentimes we don't do that. We are taken aback by this beauty of this person, or how handsome he is, or my gosh, but all the time we're observing. And the fact that I am so involved in this space, I try to switch off all the time, like how I see people using money. Like I'll go out with someone and then they start saying, oh no, and this and that. I say, okay, yeah, that's okay. Or someone, no, let's, it tells you so much about people, but we all have money personalities that sometimes we're not aware of.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just one follow-up, and then I'll give others a chance. Through you, Angie, Madam Chair. I was watching an interview recently of Black Coffee and Moji, and Black Coffee was going for counseling, and so it's something that caught the Moji by surprise, to say, you win awards, you do all these things, why do you go for counseling? And I think for me, and he said, precisely because of that, because I need to know how to handle the success.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know how to handle it, it might get to your head and you might start behaving funny. I always have this thing with entrepreneurs. I always say them in seminars or workshop, and I say to them, right now, and I'm sure even in this session, if an SMS gets into your phone and there's 1 million in your account, you're gonna log off, you're gonna leave, right? And I always say that it's the emotion to it. Do you think we understand that our habits, when we earn more money, we see a lot of people who win the lotto. There's a TV documentary on it, who win the lotto or get this financial windfall. They're in far worse off positions than before they won. Yeah. Do you think that maybe there needs to be some form of an AA for finances before we lose everything? Do we have that appreciation that, in fact, money is psychology? We need to work with our
And the thing about money, when you also start gaining confidence in who you are, even in the workplace, you realize that you start getting more opportunities. When you start getting confident in your skills and abilities, you start getting more opportunities, right? And so the same goes for money, the reverse. You did not build any confidence. You did not build any good habits. You did not seek therapy or help where you did not know, because most people are first-time millionaires, first-time success story. So you were not trained in this thing. You were not trained in this thing. So how are you expected to just be a master at it all of a sudden? It's almost impossible for a lot of people, right? And that's why I absolutely love the stories. Say, what show is it? I've seen a couple where people, like you're saying, yes. I blew it, yes. And the paradox is that we look at these stories outside of ourselves. We're thinking, ha, look at them, I would have done differently. Then the same mirror, I would say, use that same mirror and say, how are you doing with your finances with the bit that you have today? Because then that's a reflection of saying, okay, if you were to win the lotto, you would have these good habits that, would propel you to even bigger success. But what often happens, we think, no, other people are so terrible. Look at them. If I had won that amount of money, I would have done differently. I would have thought about it. I would have called a financial planner. I would have been astute. Then you say, okay, if that is true, show me your finances currently and what you've done with the little that you have, right? So I think preparation is extremely important. with finances. And that's why, you know, I am such a big advocate for graduate programs. So I do quite a few graduate programs. I do one for Vodacom. They're really brilliant. Another company called Green Matter. So anytime they bring in students, they say, before they start coming to you with credit cards, before they start coming to you with personal loans and credit limits that are way more than your salary, let's bring in someone who can teach you how to handle your finances and credit limits that, pardon me?
No, sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, so a credit limit that is way beyond. I mean, I've seen people with credit cards, they're 30,000, but their credit card limit is 80,000 rand. 80,000 rand. And bit by bit, the thing about money, especially if you are not trained well in it and you don't have that self-discipline, is that you start saying, you know, I want to furnish my flat. Those things that I had in varsity don't quite work with the aesthetics that I want anymore, right? Because now we want better. So you start spending the 5,000. That 5,000 is not that much. I'll pay it at the end of next month. I'll do this and do that. Then it's another 10,000. Then it's another. Then before people know it, they're in this whirlwind of debt and this cycle of debt that they just can't seem to get out of. And what often happens, people will say when they change employers, and this happens with most people, they'll say, well, I've built up all of this debt over this many years. I want a clean slate. So I'm leaving my employer right now. I'm going to dip into my pension or provident fund so that I can start on a clean slate and pay off my debt. Then, you know, I'm going to start investing and saving. Okay. Oftentimes I say, you are not going to do it, right? And people say, no, I'm very astute. I've learned my lesson. People take that money, pay huge amount of tax, then they go and pay off the debt. Some people don't even pay off the debt. The money comes into their account. Now it's time to have a good time because your life has been hard, right? Because discipline, again, you're not trained in the language of money. You're not trained in the game of money, right? Money has, you know, I think one thing that I would want people to get is, actually, I'm writing my second book, that money has a language. Money has its own rules. And if you do not abide by those rules, it does not matter you are black, white, rich, poor, it does not matter. If you do not plug into that language, into those rules, you will be the same as someone who's never had money before, right? So people take their money, some pay half, and you know, it's like, oh goodness, now those funds that came into my account, I actually don't know what happened. I paid half, now you still have debt, and now you don't have any retirement savings. And remember, what most people think they've lost or lost out on, let's say you have accumulated 100,000, right? And you've been working for 10 years, just for simplicity's sake, right? Remember, you just haven't lost the 10,000 that you've accumulated. You've lost on the compounding possibility of your money in the future. So it's not just 10,000, it's 10,000 that could have compounded in the next coming years. You will never be able to catch up with someone who just left their retirement funds or their savings or their investments. If you say, okay, no, I'll come back with a bigger amount, 20,000, and it will not compound the same way. And I think, you know, even in the psychology of money, that's what he talks about, that we actually do not grasp how compound interest works. And when I explain that to people and I even show them the numbers, that if you just leave this 10K that you've accumulated for the next 30 years versus saying, okay, at the end of the year, I will come back with 20,000, it does not work the same. And I think that's why it's so difficult to understand investments. It's so hard to understand that actually just let that money just grow. So another thing even to that is not just what you've lost out on. So people take them funds, put it towards their debt, and they think, oh no, it's going to be rosy from here. I'm not going to get into debt. But remember, you never truly addressed what got you into debt in the first place. Your habits. You're still the same person with the same habits. You're not trained in a new language. You now, what you've actually told your mind is that there will always be a windfall to get me out of trouble. So you look for your SARS returns, you look for, I've heard people say, no, I took out a balloon payment because I know that I'm going to get a bonus. The balloon payment, it's time to pay it up. Life happened. And that's the thing about finances. We are sometimes overly optimistic. And there's nothing wrong with being optimistic, but I would love to be more of a realist and add optimism to that, right? And I've heard so many people say, no, I'm taking out this balloon payment because I know at the end of the year, if you're a business owner, well, accountants can say this better than me, maybe you can take it in dividends to lower your tax bill or something along those lines. Then what if business does not go well? Because we're always hoping that, oh, no, the debt that I'm creating today, I will have future earnings that I'll pay it off with. But also then we don't realize that what we are saying, that my future earnings that I've worked hard for are going to go towards debt. And for me, if you can just see it for what it truly is, that you say you're working hard so that something that you are enjoying right now, I can't remember the word in economics. You've used something, you've enjoyed it, but that enjoyment is gone, and yet you're still paying for it 72 months later, 12 months later. So a lot of the times it's really an emotion thing. I mean, I remember even when we moved into our house, I wanted to furnish this place, and I looked at my finances. I said, well, we can't. We cannot afford to do that. And for a whole year, we did absolutely nothing. Our friends came, it looked like we still lived in a flat. It was still just the bare minimum, bare bones. And I could have said, oh, no, let's use a credit card. Let's finish this place quickly because, what will friends say? Then what kind of people do you really have in your life where you can't just say, hey, this is where I'm at? And I think also even for younger people, there's this pressure to just look like, oh my gosh, I've made it already. I've qualified as this, I've qualified as that. And it's part of the trap. And people truly just never find themselves financially secure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for putting the book together. Angie, over to you.
Yeah, I love that she mentioned at the beginning of her last comment, she mentioned something about patience and learning. I love that throughout the book, you also encourage people to be patient. And then if you have made mistakes, it's just learning, it's a learning curve. And then not because you made past mistakes, you're gonna dwell on them. You need to move forward, right? And it's a journey, but you need to take this step and you need to take the initiative to learn. And that's something that your book is doing wonderfully in a very plain language and understandable. I saw Vena probably wanted to come in. Vena, was it you that wanted to participate? Yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. I just want to thank Osma Paulet for penning her expertise that some of us can learn from her. It's almost like, she's taking us straight into a higher learning degree. Those of us who are not like Dr. Roche, who studied finances. I felt so affirmed when I saw the title that I'm pre-rich. I really own it, and that's what I'll call it. I'm pre-rich, I'm not broke. The title really spoke to me. I just also wanted to mention that the idiom that you were referring to, could it be make hay while the sun still shines?
Yes, that's the one. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. I've got a disclaimer. I've not read the book yet, but I just wanted to take the opportunity as well that, as an adult growing up, the two sayings in our household that we grew up with was, my dad would say, leave the money alone. He would say that so consistently because he knew, given the opportunity.
And which language did which language do you speak at home? Because I always find that it has so much more gravitas when it's said in your home language.
Alone. He really never made a mistake. And I always reflect that, with our African counterparts, you go to your Tanzania, you go to your Kenyas, it's a cash economy. You buy your house cash many a times, you buy your car cash. And the trap that those of us who have access to credit, it gives us the illusion that we're rich, and we're not. We're really into that debt, right?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Funny enough, I'm actually going to Tanzania by the end of this month to speak there. And it's one of the things that I realized, even in Lesotho, yes, there's a little bit of banking, but a lot of people just save their money and they buy things cash, they build their houses cash, and it takes time. And I love exactly your words. It's an illusion that I have money. Right. So one of the things I did yesterday, I said, hey, on my Instagram stories, I asked people, I said, what do you think is the one big financial mistake people should avoid, or you should have avoided? Right. And every single person, even if you go there, I have it in my highlights, every one of the mistakes that people spoke about involved credit. Someone said to me, I bought my house because the bank said I qualified. I mean, this is a bank. This is an institution that is trustworthy. If a bank says I qualify, then clearly I must qualify, right? And what people don't do is do their own affordability test. Can I actually afford this, right? And it sounds great. And I'll even give you an example. A couple of years ago, I wanted to change from my Chevy because, I'm moving up in the world. A girl needs a new car. I have kids now. And I remember one of my friends, when I was pregnant with our first son, she said to me, so you're going to get a new car. I said, for what good reason? This person is going to come out of me. They're probably going to be this size. Now I'm going to have a whole new vehicle because I have this person, right? And already you can even hear the social messaging that we get when it comes to money, right? That it's an expectation that, okay, now you have kids, now you're married, you should be, buying a bigger house, buying a bigger car. And thankfully, I just said, I don't need a new car. This one is fully paid off. I'm still trying to build my career. I'm trying to save and I'm still trying to travel. So I didn't buy a new car. Then when I thought, I think I can afford some nice wheels, I went to the dealership. I'm the type of person, I like numbers, right? And actually my name, Sesotho Mapalo, means numbers, right? So mother of numbers, if you were to translate it loosely. And I go in there with my numbers. I'm like, okay, this is how much I would be able to afford. This is the deposit. Obviously, no balloon payment. I have my things right. And I go in there knowing. So I'm telling the salesperson, oh no, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I can afford. Thinking about maintenance and all sorts of things. This guy starts telling me, but if you were to pay an extra 3,000 more, 4,000 more, you get something even better. Because, I bet work hard. And, you're listening to the sales talk, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I deserve that. I deserve the nice things as well. And I'm there thinking, I think this is a good deal. I think this is a good idea. I mean, I can definitely afford it. It's not too much out of my price range. So again, you see, you might have a plan for yourself, but sometimes going to institutions when you are not solid yourself and knowing what it is that you can afford and knowing that this is my limit, it's very easy to just be like, oh, okay, then you're working out with a card that you did not plan on buying. And it applies the same with credit cards. Some people will say, you know what, I actually have a situation that requires that I use my credit card or that I use a credit card. And sometimes truly life happens. And remember, with finances, we cannot shame anyone because truly sometimes not like, oh no, they were popping champagne at, I don't know, fancy places. Sometimes life just genuinely happens. But then the thing that we need to do and be aware of is that whenever sometimes you go and access either any form of credit, they'll look at you and say, hi man, but Vena, you can afford more. So let's say you go in to say, you know what, I just want to close off lebakanyana here for 10,000. You go there, then they say, no, but you actually qualify for 30,000. What often people do, they don't say, no, I came here for 10,000, not 30,000. What do? Oh, no, I'll take the 30,000. I'll use 10,000 only. Some other lady I saw, I asked her, what was the credit card for? It was 20,000 rand. And she said, there was a couple of things that I needed to do over. I said, you are lying to yourself and you're lying to me, because you cannot remember what you even did with the money. It means that it was not as urgent. It turns out she actually needed 3,900 rand to take care of something at home very quickly. The rest, she just went on a spending spree because it was accessible. So the illusion, again, it comes back very strongly in there, that when it's accessible, normally we take it, but without thought and thinking, is this for my benefit? How am I going to handle this in later? So I think you brought up such an important point about illusion of actually having money when we actually have access to credit, which we have to pay back with interest on top of that. And normally I ask people, sorry, just the last thing. I normally ask people, I say, okay, so you have all these types of debts, but can you tell me right now, on the top of your head, how much interest rate you're paying towards each and every single debt? If you have a home, do you know how much is the interest rate that they're charging you? If you have a credit card, do you know how much is the interest there? If you have some sort of account, do you know the interest rate there? So it effectively tells you that actually people don't know the cost of the debt. They just know, okay, at the end of the month, 5,000 is going off my account, but you don't effectively know what is the actual cost, because the interest rate actually is the one that tells you, how much is this thing costing me? How expensive is this thing?
No, as you were speaking, I had a confession to make that one of my first mistakes when I started working was an overdraft. I had no business getting involved in an overdraft. And to get out of that cycle took me quite a bit of time. In fact, it got me into more trouble than I needed at the time. But the last comment that I have, in fact, it's a question. I'm really passionate about children and getting children to read as much as possible. As Madam Chair indicated earlier on, that financial literacy is not necessarily part of our education curriculum. Children are not taught money. I see parents try different tricks. They'll open an account for a child or make them use getting a certain amount of money within a certain period, whether it's a week or a month, just to create a relationship, a positive relationship with money. But if time allows, Madam Chair, can maybe Asmogale give us some tips? Mapalo, I beg your pardon. Can you give us maybe some bit of tips on how to introduce these concepts with children, and how easy is it to actually teach them finances early in their life? Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, so I'll try to be quick, although it's not a quick answer. And I will say this, there's no right way or wrong way to teach kids about money, as long as it's age appropriate. But the first thing that people skip on is always, how do I teach kids about money? I say, you as a parent, are you comfortable with money? Because remember, kids don't go by what you say as such. They see, oh, mommy around the house, she talks about, oh no, she has a budget. If she's going shopping, she will tell me that, oh, okay, no, I know you're going to want this and this, but here is your budget. Your budget is 50 rand. So it starts with you and how you handle your finances and how comfortable or uncomfortable you are with money. Like if with your dad, all you heard was, leave money alone, So already he was teaching you something about money even then, right? That you were not completely aware of, and that has affected you in one way or another. So it's not with you, the parent. You cannot teach what you do not know. How is that possible? So the education, I normally look at parents, I say, where is your education level and how comfortable are you with money, first of all? Because we want to teach our children, but we ourselves are very uncomfortable. And then we want to leave the education maybe to someone else. Yes, the education system should be doing better, but the education comes from you. So some of the things that we really should just be doing, or some of the tips, and there's no right or wrong. If it's age appropriate, and remember with kids, it's just about reinforcement. So yes, it can be a piggy bank. It can be having an account. It can be you doing a little budget with them. My mother showed me her payslip when I was 9, because I said, I want this. She said, girl, where's that going to come from? She looked me dead in the eye, said, this is my payslip, and we have to budget for this thing that you wanted. And it changed the way I looked at money. And some people can say, oh no, that's drastic for a child. You know your child, right? My mother knew the type of person I am. And it changed me because I started saving. Even the money that I had saved up, even after that, I said, no, I don't want to spend it on the thing that I had a desire for 9 months ago. I no longer had a desire for it because it wasn't the coolest thing anymore. And also it talks to that thing where, you know, we are so impatient, we want something now, that instant gratification, then 2 months later, it doesn't even bother you anymore. And then we get into credit, we bought it on credit. So with kids, it's all about reinforcement, having conversations about money. I mean, even around the house here, we'll say, okay, what do you want to do with your birthday? Because we have to budget for it, right? Yes. What often parents do, I want to give them everything they ever want and desire in under the sun. Nothing wrong with that. That's what every parent wants. But I mean, our oldest son is 7, and he's very much aware of money. Anytime he gets a 20 rand or 50 rand, even with families, sometimes they get, around his birthday, we have this thing where we gift the kids 100 rand from each family type of thing. He knows, he will tell you, mommy, I need to save 20%. I need to give 10%. The rest, I can see what I can do. Before he does anything. And I mean, I started teaching him this when he didn't even make sense of it. He couldn't make sense of it. But now he will tell you. And I'll give you a funny example. So I live with my sister's daughter. They go to the same school. She came back from school, fetching them from school one day. And she's coming back. Oh, Mama came with her a piggy bank, and gave whoever a lot of money, gave whoever a little bit of money. And she was saying, oh no, I'm going to ask my mommy if I can bring my piggy bank to school. My son, because we are having this conversation together, he was doing another sport, we were waiting for him. We get into the car and she tells him the story. My son says, what? Why is she wasting so much money? That is not a very good thing to do. What? She saved all this money to only give it away. We showed him how much was in his bank account, and he knows that this, I think it was in January, we took the piggy bank that he had and we took him to the bank to physically count the money and have the teller put it in his bank account so he knows how much it is. Like, mommy, I want to have 1 billion rand in here, right? So we said, okay, we have to actually spend a little bit on the card so that the card is active. This man went to Spar and he was looking at the price and saying, mommy, how much is this one? This one is a little bit expensive. Going to the next chocolate. No. He spent a whole 60 rand. 60 rand. This guy had more than 3,000 rand in his account. He spent 60 rand and he said, you know what? I want to buy a game in June when I get my some console. I can't remember which game it is. But he's so much aware, and it comes from you as a parent, just integrating those conversations with them. It's your birthday. What would you like to do so you can start budgeting for it? It's Christmas. I'm sure you'd like a Christmas present. Would you like this or that? This will cost this much. This one costs that much. And I think parents are afraid to talk about money with their kids, thinking it's a little bit it's not too much. Remember your role as a parent. And I heard this, there's a Jewish channel that I absolutely love watching. It's called L'chaim Living. And the rabbi said, remember your job as a parent, yes, to try give them experiences and a wonderful life. But remember, the biggest thing that you actually called for as a parent is to raise someone who can function as a human being in the world that has so much pressure. So by you not teaching them and by you shielding them that, no, actually this month is not a great month, you are effectively saying, well, the world is just this wonderful place where my son wanted to do this and that. I said, my man, and let's sit down. How much do all of these extracurricular activities cost? You do piano, you do karate, you do swimming. You want to add to this long list. On top of that, it's time to take you up and down, but it costs a lot of things. I showed him how much the extracurricular activities cost, and he chose between, okay, I'll go with karate. The swimming obviously is important for water safety and so that he can enjoy the water. Piano, he looked like he enjoys music, but more than that, no. They have to know and they have to be aware. We cannot shield them forever. No, and even later in their life, they'll know that, okay, I have options that I have to choose from. And also one other thing, one last thing, other thing that parents do is if they cannot afford or they just feel like they're being ridiculous, then they don't communicate with their kids to say, actually, I will not be able to do that. The person just keeps on asking you, hey, when are we going to do this? And you keep on saying next week. No, tell the child, you know what, we are not able to buy it right now. But if you wait for, we told our son he couldn't have, what is not PS, the other one. I forgot what it's called now, goodness.
PlayStation Mang.
Xbox.
Yeah, like not the other one.
Nintendo Wii.
Nintendo, yes. He's been wanting a Nintendo. And also the pressure from cousins and school, because your child is going to school with different kids, and some people, yes, they can afford every single thing and they want to give them on the spot. That's okay, that's their parenting, that's fine. But I said to him, okay, but we just got you something very expensive the other time. You're gonna have to be patient. So again, remember, also, even if you have the money, but teaching them patience a little bit, right? We said, no, you can wait. You had a very good Christmas present. You can wait until June to have this Nintendo around your birthday. Now that's all he ever talks about. Any money, he'll even try to clean the pool. He's a short little guy. He'll be here. No, mommy, how much do you think Daddy's going to give me for cleaning the pool? Do you think it's going to be 20 rand? Do you think it's going to be 50? That would be very nice if it was 50. And already he knows that I'm not going to buy every single game on the Nintendo. He knows that, okay, some of the money I have, I'm going to use to buy my games. So also communication and just being open. And obviously, again, being age appropriate with them is very important. But don't shield them from everything. They're not going to be young forever. Now you're going to start teaching someone who's 14 and just thinks that, everything comes as when they want and desire.
Yes, Bena.
Wow, thank you. I'm really covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bena.
It's important, as you say, and kids, they don't do what you say, they do what they see you doing as well. So it starts with us, as you say, having a budget. My kids also talk about budgets at SPAR. Usually the people look at them weird because they're asking me, what is our budget? What is our budget? So it's really important. I think we're gonna be wrapping up. We have very few minutes left, but I wanted to give a quick chance to Marisela. You're not gonna escape, Marisela. Are you around? Marisela. Yeah.
Maybe your mic is off.
Yes. No, sorry, I was trying to fight with the mute button.
Nah.
But, so
3 years later.
This is actually a really good book. I didn't get to read all of it. I actually got it, but I just haven't had the time to read it. It's been a bit crazy on my end. But it actually talks around a lot of the things I've been trying to practice myself. I think one of the things my wife and I started, well, I started doing it and I convinced my wife to start doing as well. Hopefully she starts doing it more.
Yeah.
But is to actually write down everything that I buy, where I buy it from, how much it costs. I think I've actually been doing it for the last 2 years. It's actually quite interesting. When I don't do it, I tend to spend more. But when I do it, I actually understand, okay, if I do this, it means I have to actually go write it down. And it actually keeps me accountable because I know what I spend, when I spend. It's almost like a budgeting tool, but it's more around an auditing tool that I created for myself. So it's actually what you're saying now, actually, I can resonate a lot with, because I could see it in my own life, where if I do something that I know is gonna, like I'm saving towards, I'll put within that tool as well, I'll put a savings thing that is counting how much I'm left with to get to that and whatever. But I must say, it's actually a brilliant book. And it was Dr. Roche had said, it reminds me of one of the books that we have done, I think is it the Psychology of Money? Yes. And that was actually a really good eye-opener as well, just to know that I'm going in the right direction at least. But your book, I'm gonna definitely read it. And it's actually one that I think a lot of people, for instance, should be doing, as you said. Especially, I like what you mentioned when you said that if you think those people from my book, my biggest blunders are doing it because, oh no, I wouldn't do that or whatever. Look at how you do what you do now, because ultimately that will show you what you probably will do when you get that money, you know.
Absolutely.
And they at our church, they always say, if you can't even give 10 rent now or 1 rand now, how are you going to give 100 rent later?
No.
So it's the same principle, right? To say that what you do now with what you have now will ultimately show you what you will probably do when you have 1 million and 2 million or 100 million, whatever, you know. Absolutely. And I like that. Thank you so
much. Actually, I just want to touch on the last thing, on what you just said, Malisela, which I found very interesting. So oftentimes people ask me, Mapalo, how do I get my partner, my husband, my wife on board? Because, you know, I want to clean up our finances. I want to make sure that we are financially secure. And you hit the nail on the head. You started and you're hoping that, you know, your wife will see that I'm doing this thing, it's working for me, it's working for our family, then bringing you, and then they'll come on board. What often happens, people say, oh no, I want to change our financial situation. Then they start yelling and screaming, why aren't you doing this? Why? But it starts with you.
Yes.
Right. And again, even when we're talking about kids, it starts with you as the parent. It starts with you as the other partner to start acting right, start doing the right things and saying, hey, because people are attracted to good things. If I see that this thing is working for you, hey man, just Malisela, you said, show me how do you do this thing, you know? So I think for me, that's just another tip also on how to, you know, start the conversation about money, to say, hey, I've been doing this thing, it's pretty cool, it's working. Do you want to give it a try as a family together?
Yeah, and I'm living testimony, because I am that wife. I am like your wife, and my husband took the initiative, and it works, you know, to the point that now my 11-year-old, she's our bookkeeper. She's keeping the register in a spreadsheet.
That is brilliant.
For the receipts, and she doesn't like to be called bookkeeper. She says she's an account manager, so it's fine with
accountant. She's a CA.
That's brilliant.
Yes. So sorry, we are just going 2-3 minutes over time, but I would like Mama Diketla Lolo, our guest of honor. She's around. I would like to hear her beautiful voice. Lolo, are you around?
Of honor, really. No, I'm not a guest of honor. There's no such. This is an amazing collective. I haven't read the book, but I've been taking notes, and I've enjoyed mainly from the get-go. I really enjoyed how language has been critical. From how you came about to naming the book based on what resonated with other people, And even with your background, with your finance background, still being able to coin everything, even as you articulate it, coin it in a way that resonates so strongly. Angie, well done. You've done a brilliant job today, as usual. But Mapalo, for me, as I'm a breadwinner and a caregiver, and so much of what you shared today resonates in a profound way, and from different aspects of my life. A previous banker, so having been on the other side, and being a startup on the other side, there's so many sharp contrasts that make sense to me. So this was therapy, this was a launching pad, this was a lot of things, and I'm really blessed to have joined the session today. So keep doing an amazing job. Looking forward to your second book, and we'll definitely read the first one too. So well done, Angie, and everybody else that continues to support this amazing book club. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lolo. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Mapalo. I'm just going to leave the floor, and this is the last time I'm saying it, but if you have not read, to our viewers or anyone here in the club, please do yourself a favor and just do it. It really demystifies this topic. It's not scary as it looks like, and it will be a blessing, definitely. It was a blessing in me. I thought I knew a lot of things, but you opened my eyes in a lot of ways. So I'm just grateful. And I think I have to go back to it again and really digest it, because I think it's just too good to just let it go at once. And I'm really also looking forward to your second book. Dr. Raj.
Hi, thank you, Angie. And thank you to our guest, Mapalo. Thank you so much for your time, for coming through. We really honor you, and thank you for the emotional labor of writing a book. I can imagine writing a book is not something that's you're taking your baby and putting her out there, and they have to go through it. So thank you so much. Yeah. We are hoping that once the second book is out, we'll invite you back. Yes, if you don't mind. And yeah, but thank you so much, and thanks, colleagues, for coming through. And I'll see you next month. You know what book we are reviewing next month, so I'll see you next month. Thank you so much, Mapalo, and have a lovely.
Thank you so much to everyone and all the questions. Have a good night.
Thank you. We'll follow you.
Blondie. Oh my word, Blondie, you were in and out.
Blondie.
Okay, Blondie. Go for it quickly.
I haven't read the book. You know my story. I went to Exclusive Books and I had to get it from another branch, so it arrived very late. So I'll go through it. But like what Angie was saying and Auslolo, a lot of it resonates because, you know, we are breadwinners, caregivers. Black tax is our common theme. Like every month, you have to say something home, but the boundaries is what I like, because I'm one of those who doesn't, you know, understand boundaries, and I find myself in a position where it creates a lot of resentment within the family structure, because you are not liked one month, the next month you are loved. So it's a very disturbing pattern, and one that I need to control, because I also, you know, work on a budget. You know, no matter how many things you have, you just need to control it. I split my income into 4, even if I can afford to do this. I always live below my means, and I don't understand why I need to be sponsoring certain habits. And it's a perpetual thing. It's a bottomless pit. They're forever asking for this and that, and it's quite disturbing. And I'm not one of those that really would stand there and say no. You know, my no sometimes is so soft. So yeah, I'm going to read it, and but I know Mapalo from the Zoom. What do you call it? Not Zoom. What is this? YouTube. I'm not a YouTuber. So
the lotion.
Sorry. So I came across her first session on just stumbling upon things. on YouTube. That's the first time I saw her talking finance, and but I never, I'm not consistently on YouTube, but that was my first experience with Mapalo. So it sounds interesting. I'm going to read it, and it sounds very interesting because it touches my nerves.
Definitely, no, go ahead, read it. I know Mapalo will be glad also. You give her your feedback, send her an inbox. She's on social media, YouTube, Instagram. I follow her. Go and follow her. And yeah, thank you so much, Brody, for sharing also your experience and your feelings. Yeah, we're also looking forward to hearing your feedback even when you read it. Thank you so much, Mapalo. Once again, you were a blessing to us. Have a good night, everyone.
After being load shed even. Have a good night.
Yes. Have a good night.
Yes, bye.
Bye-bye.